Creating engaging images can be fun, and in many cases, it can be a little overwhelming. Now, if you've ever struggled with creating images that are engaging to the audience or just having fun while creating them, well, that's what today's lesson is going to help you with. So let's go ahead and jump into the computer. So here we are inside of ON1 Photo Raw, and what you can see in front of you is an image that I already edited. Now, if you want to see more work that I've created, then consider going to my Vero account, and you'll be able to see a lot of the work that I've already created. And I think it'll be a great opportunity to see some of the engagement that I'm able to kind of garner, if you will, from viewing the image. But let's go ahead and talk about what we have here. So earlier in the week, the sun was setting. I was walking through the hallway of my home. I looked out the window, and of course, I seen the sunset and said I need to go grab my camera and photograph this. So that's exactly what we have here. We got two different images. Now, I took a lot of images. If I just get rid of this attribute, you can see, and we'll go back to the grid. You can see I got a lot of photos here. I tried some intentional camera movement. That's why these particular images in the middle are a little blurry. But today we're going to focus on the two that I kind of culled through and edited. And we'll start with this one right here. So let's double click it and go into the edit module. Now, this is already completed, but let me show you what I started with when I actually edited this image. So this is what I started with. So this is where we are going to start. But before we do, let me just create a snapshot. And for those of you who are new here, I typically never get back to the initial edit because the way that I edit and the way that I encourage everyone to edit is find a workflow that is best for you. And if you need to change it, change it. The way that we work inside of the software is non-destructive. So it's okay to experiment. But with all that out of the way, first thing that I do on all of my images when working inside of ON1 Photo Raw is I hit Brilliance AI. And what this allows me to do is just kind of pull out some of those tones in an intelligent way. But I always have to kind of, tune it to taste. Even though I have Brilliance AI tuned, I have to tune it to my own liking for the image. So on this one, let me just go ahead and pull up on the amount slider here, because what I'm trying to do is really bring out the brightness of the sunset. And I guess that's the important step here. Whenever you want to make a photo that is engaging, you should always look at the image and say, what is it that I like about this image that I want to make sure I share with the viewer? And the thing that stopped me was obviously the sunset. So the camera can only see so much. Our eyes see a lot more detail, a lot more color and vibrancy, especially compared to a raw file. So that's why we have to edit them to engage with the audience. So that's essentially what I want to do here. So far, this is where we started. This is without any edits. And then this is where we've gotten, and it's pretty good. For the most part, there's some things that we can do to make this a little bit better. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Let me just go ahead and see if the color slider is helping or hurting. I think it's helping, so we'll leave it alone. And then we'll jump down to tone and color. There's no local adjustments that are being created, so I'm not going to worry about that. And so we'll jump down to tone and color. And the next step that I like to do is look at what different color profiles or camera profiles will do. And a camera profile, when you're working with a raw image, this is just how ON1 is generating the preview or working with the raw data to manipulate the color space or whatever it may be. And you'll see that there's some .dcp files down here towards the bottom. These are you'll find that these match the camera profiles that are inside of your camera. And sometimes they help, sometimes they don't help. And in this case, I feel like the ON1 standard is the profile that I'm going to go with because it gives me the best representation of where I feel comfortable with working. This is purely subjective, but it's something that I do recommend you explore if you want to learn or if you want to kind of get a different look on your images. Maybe one of these camera profiles will be helpful. Now, I'm going to jump over exposure, and what I like to do is figure out like how much contrast do I really want in the image. To do that, I come over to levels and I kind of just look at what the histogram is showing me. And what I'm seeing right now is I have obviously a ton of black, right? If I turn on the clipping mask, you can see essentially the entire frame on the outside is black, and that's perfectly fine in my opinion, because I want to draw the viewer into this area here. And I also want to be able to tell that this is a window. So we're kind of looking through the window at the sunset. That's the intent or the story that I want to tell. So I'm okay with all of this being black. All right. But what it's also showing me is I have some room over here on the far right. I'm not clipping anything in the highlights. So what I like to do is push my white point just almost to the point of where it's about to clip. And what that does is it just makes sure that I have enough data in the raw file. So when I come over to local and effects, I can kind of manipulate that the way that I want. That's just a personal preference. You don't have to do that. The next thing that I like to do is, even though I already have a lot of black detail in here, I'm going to pull down on my blacks a little bit more. And then I think I'm going to open up the shadows just to see what happens here. And I don't really care for what it's doing, so I'm just going to reset that. I don't really need that house to be too bright, because that's and when I say the house, I'm talking about this building right here. Don't need that to be too bright, so I'll just pull it up a little bit because it is a sunset, but it's also on the other side of the house, so this should be darker and in shadow. Now, I think that is all I really need to do with tone and color, or tone, so we'll minimize that, and we'll come down to the color section. Now, what I like to do with my colors in the tone and color section is really set the mood. All right, set the mood with the colors, and then I enhance them using the effects over here with a color enhancer or something of that sort. So I'm going to just push up on the vibrance a little bit here and see what it does. And don't be afraid to like put it at 100 and see if you like it, because this doesn't look too bad. But I can come down maybe to about here, and then I'm going to push the saturation until it's way too much, like that is way too much, and then I'll just pull it back until it gets to that realistic tone. All right, so if I hold down the backslash key, you can see this is what we came into the editing window with, and this is where we've gotten with just tone and color. Now, I think it's a little too saturated because I don't want to oversaturate things. Like I look down here, and these areas, that's actually snow on the ground. Where I live, we had a little bit of a snowstorm, so that's turning blue. Even though it's in the shadow, that makes sense, but I don't want it to be too blue. So what I'll do here is actually push up on the temperature just a little bit. Now, this is a raw file, so I can manipulate the raw data a little bit better than if this were not a raw file and I was trying to manipulate this data. So let me just pull this up maybe to about 40, 45. Well, let me just type it in, because for some reason it doesn't want to just go there. I'm going to leave it as as shot because it doesn't want to jump to 4,500 Kelvin for me. But that is what I would do here. Not sure why that's not working. Okay, so real quick, this is what we came into the edit window with, and this is what we what we have gotten so far. Now, let's go ahead and jump over to the effects tab because it's time to really start working with this file. Or actually, we'll go to local. There's some small details around the edges of the frame here that I want to pull out. So I'm going to go ahead, let me invert this mask. So I'm going to right click on the mask, click invert, and all that's allowing me to do is pull up on the shadows. I'm going to see if I could pull some of that detail out, maybe even exposure. And no, it looks like I may have baked that in a little too hard. So I'm not going to worry about it. But along the window here, there's like these little vines. It's decoration. I was going to try to bring that out just to bring a little bit of balance of what was inside the room to the outside of the room or to the sunset. But that is not going to work today. So while we're at it, let's just go ahead and hit the letter C. We'll get a crop tool. I've been working a lot with 4x5 crops. This is purely subjective, but I found that 4x5 crops are a little bit more fun to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and crop this in just a little bit. So I'll bring it up and maybe bring that in. There's already a frame around this, and I think that it works well, like the frame that's there. Let me see. Do I like the 4x5? Yeah, I do like the 4x5. So essentially, the frame that's going around here is purely like drawing the eye in, and I do enjoy that. So I'm going to go with that. Now, what are the next things that I like to do with my images to kind of pull them out and into more of an engaging type of image? Well, what I'm going to do next is click effects, hit add filter, and I like to start with a color enhancer, or I'm going to. The effects that I start with when I stylize my images are always different, but today I think the style enhancer, or I'm sorry, the color enhancer is the best tool to start with. And what I'm going to do is click fall, and you can see how that just like makes this whole area glow. It's a little too strong, so I'm just going to go ahead and dial that back. And you dial this to taste for your own images. We'll go ahead and hit the or turn this off, turn it back on, and I'm actually okay with what I have here. So we'll go ahead and leave that as is. And I think the last thing that I really need on this image is something to kind of like pull everything together. Now, there's a few filters that you could use to pull everything together. The one that I used the last time was the glow filter. And I like to just go through the presets. I've made my own presets here. And sometimes these work on images, sometimes they don't. But the presets that are built in, so anything that doesn't say FWP next to it, that means that these are the presets available to users of ON1 because it comes with the software. And then what I like to do is just hover my mouse over the first one, and using the arrow keys on my keyboard, I'll just scroll through until I see something that I like. And it could be like really strong. Like this is actually not too bad. I could probably work with that. And I'm looking for something that just kind of makes this whole image come together. And that's kind of hard to explain because it's meant to be seen. And I think I will go with the darker glow. That was the one that I enjoyed. So all I'm going to do is click on that. And then I'll pull down on the amount because I want to blend this in just a little bit better. Let's see. And maybe even pull down on the opacity of it. So, yeah. So you can see like there's a lot of detail without the glow on. You can kind of see the screen to the window, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to blur that out or whatever. So that's where the glow comes in. It just takes the edge off of it and allows us to kind of see past that screen and into the sunset, which is what I really want the viewer to spend time on with this particular image. So this is what we started with. Obviously the crop was different, but this is what we started with, kind of a dull sunset. And now it's a very obvious sunset. Now for some that may be way too much, but my goal here was to create something that was engaging. And I think that, you know, and I also wanted to make sure that it was clear of what the subject of the image was, and that is the sunset. The secondary feature is this frame that's going around it. So this is that whole frame within a frame kind of technique. So I'm going to go ahead and create a snapshot of this, and we'll just call this edit 2. And let's jump back to the first one. So this is the first edit, and you can see on this one, I actually got some of that detail that I was explaining or that I was sharing, and I actually went with a different crop on this image. And you can see that because it's definitely a 2x3 crop. But the edit that I ended up with, I'm actually okay with as well. Like, and this is the beauty of re-editing images. Sometimes you get one look and you like it, and then you get a second look and you like that as well. And you know, these are all non-destructive edits that I've made. So that's that one. Let's jump over to the second image and let's edit that quickly. So let's go full screen with it. It's still loading in. Give it a second here. Okay, and while that loads in, I'm gonna get some coffee. Hopefully you guys got some coffee. It's early in the morning for me. Okay. Oh, all right, let's go full screen. Boom. So this one, I don't think I'm zoomed in, am I? I am zoomed in. All right, there we go. Let's go there. We'll go right here. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a layered image. What that means is I sent this off to another editing software after I got the edit the way that I liked it, and then I said, you know what, I want to put this into Luminar Neo and really kind of bring out the blues to the orange gradient, if that makes sense. So the top layer there that I just turned off, that is what I edited inside of Luminar Neo. And then the bottom layer here is what I actually edited coming into ON1, the raw image. So if I hold down the backslash key, you can see what this image looks like. Now, we're not going to go into Luminar Neo today. I'm just going to go ahead and edit this particular image. And then, you know, if you want to see what I do in Luminar Neo, leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to share that information. But I want to keep today's lesson relatively short. So first things first, I need to create a new snapshot. So I'm going to come over here. We'll just call this final edit 1. And now we can go ahead and reset this. So the way that I reset my my images after I edit them is I just come over to the original, and now I have this file reset. Now, what you may have noticed, let me just jump back to final edit 1. what you may have noticed once this does its thing is I didn't actually use Brilliance AI when I did the initial edit to this image. And that is a great point, that you don't always have to use the tools that are available to you, right? You are the artist, you get to do what you want. And I think that's where the fun comes in. You can create engaging images without having to use every single tool that's available to you, right? Sometimes it's just easier to jump over into tone and color yourself. Yeah, there you go. I modified the tone and color manually, and that's the beauty of being able to work inside of software like ON1. So let's go back to the original, and we're just going to go ahead and try to recreate that essential look. All right. So let's go through our camera profiles, because I think that will always be helpful. Now, here's the deal that I ran into with this particular image. I have a lot of artifacts in this image, because if you come over to info, you'll see that I shot this at 32,000 ISO, and I got a lot of noise in here. Now, I could run noise software or noise removal software, but the way that I kind of get through or get by on this, because you don't always have to run noise reduction software, especially since these are in the shadowed areas and this isn't as important, I can just change my camera profile and find something that kind of hides that. So maybe we'll go with camera landscape. The issue that I have with camera landscape is it's making the yellows or the oranges a little too yellow or orange. I'm not a huge fan of that. So I want those to be more orange, and I can always change that. But for the sake of not over guessing or analyzing this, I think I'm going to go with the 9 Mark II camera landscape. And if you're wondering, like, Chris, what is the 9 Mark II? Mine looks different. Remember, the .dcp files are specific to your camera. So this was shot with a Sony A9 Mark II. So that's why there's the 9M2 camera landscape.dcp. Yours may say EOS R6, or maybe it's an Olympus format. I don't know. Your camera, your DCP file. All right. I'm going to go ahead and select that one. And I think that that's a great starting point. And I keep moving that image. All right. Let's get through this edit relatively quick. So I'm going to skip over exposure, because I don't think I need to expose this anymore. Instead, what I want to do is pull down on the shadows, because I want to hide some of that noise detail. But I do like the color that's coming through on here. So we'll see if we can kind of pull that out, because I think that this is going to be a great leading line into the main feature, which is the sunset. I'll have to kind of work on that. And then I'm going to pull down on my blacks and maybe pull up on the midtones. And you can see I'm starting to get that detail or that color. I don't know if the noise is really detail, and who knows, maybe that adds to the image. We'll see if we can make that make sense a little bit later. Let's push up on the contrast just a touch here, and let's see what we can get out of the highlights. If I increase those, decreasing them definitely does not do what I want it to do. So I'm going to increase them just a little bit, and we'll call that good. So now what I'll do is come down to my tone and color, or not tone and color, just the color. Let me pull that up here. And I'll pull the vibrance over, and you can see it's starting to work with that windowsill. And it's also making the sunset a little bit more orange. Now, this is, again, like the volume knob globally, as I set the stage for what I want to do in the back end of the software, in my styling. or the back end of my workflow, not the software. All right. So here is where we started. And I think that this was a great image and great color starting off. And we're actually starting to kill some of that genuine color that was in there. So let's pull down on the vibrance here. Maybe even pull back on the saturation. This is like a balance game, you know. So let's maybe add in a little bit of magenta. Okay, yeah. We'll get a little bit different look, but I'm starting to get that separation between the orange to the blue with the magenta in the middle. All right. Let's go to effects. We'll add a color enhancer because I know I need to start working on the colors in this image. All right. So the first thing that I want to do, and one of the fun ways of working with the color enhancer is if you come down to this little eyedropper, first I'm going to select saturation, and then I'm going to click the eyedropper. I can come over to the color that I want to work in. It's going to select the channel that's appropriate, and then all I have to do is drag over to the right or over to the left. Now in this case, I'm going to drag it to the right, and yeah, we'll do something like that. And once it has the channel selected, it's usually a little bit easier to just come over to the color enhancer and drag it over on your own. Let's modify the hue a little bit. So there goes a little bit of orange there, and I think maybe darken it down. Starting to get some artifacts in there, but I'm not overly concerned with that. I'll show you how I deal with that a little bit. And so I'll grab the eye picker again, come over here to the blues, maybe increase the blues. So now I have my blues selected. Let's go ahead and maybe add in a little bit of, move them towards the purple hue, and maybe brighten them. Maybe darken them a little bit. And then of course, let's turn this off, turn it back on. I think that that's working decently well. Okay, I can work with that. Let's go to local real quick. And I'm going to grab my line mask tool. This is a great tool for things like this, because I can just box it in real quick, and I'm going to hit the plus or paint in right here, and I'm going to feather this 100% because it could fade out, and then I'll hit the checkbox to close it out. This is what my mask looks like. Let me come back over here, change it to grayscale so you can see it a little bit better. So that's what the mask looks like, and obviously it has a negative exposure on it. What I want to do is open the shadows, because remember, I wanted this to be kind of like a leading feature into the main feature. And then I'll probably even, let's pull down on the midtones, pull down on the blacks, just to, no, we'll leave the blacks alone. Let's see if, contrasting it definitely helps. And all I'm trying to do is bring out those bright points, and I don't know why that's darkening it, so we're not going to worry about that. Maybe a little bit of exposure, and then we'll leave that as is. I know that I still have that noise issue, and I didn't run any denoising on this particular photo yet, and that is something you could do at this point if you found that denoising would be the better option. But I did want some more detail down here as I realized that. So now let's go add filter. And I think what I'm going to add in here, let's try bleach bypass. Now that's way too strong. So let's pull down on the amount, and we can maybe push the saturation just a little bit, pull back on the detail. Nah, maybe bleach bypass isn't the better option. So let's go with the glow. I think a glow will definitely help us a little bit. So we'll go with normal glow, and then maybe run a little bit of halo. And I'm still keeping that detail down here. The color artifacts are still bothering me even after putting a glow on it. Usually the glow kind of helps that stuff go away. So let's jump back over to develop, go to noise and sharpening, click on no noise AI, and no noise AI does a really good job at cleaning up stuff like this. So I'm confident that it's going to like reduce a lot of that noise. Yeah, so you can see it just reduced it, made it really non-existent. So I'm actually just going to hit apply, accept what it's got, get a sip of coffee, and then we'll finish up this image. So using no noise AI on your images, purely up to you. And you know, it doesn't work on every single image, but for this one, it did clean up that noise and got rid of the distraction that I was seeing down here. And I really do appreciate where it's gone so far. So here's where we started, and here is where we've gotten. And of course, everyone's going to have a different idea and way of editing, and that's perfectly fine. So let's try one last thing, and that will be, I feel like I want to put a texture on here. I'm not sure what texture I should put on here. Now, I will likely just use a paper texture, and then what I like to do is, let's find a, yeah, like this rice paper texture looks pretty cool. It's really strong, so I'll back it off a little bit, and hopefully that's coming through on YouTube because it is relatively faint. But if you look right in this area, at least to me, what it's doing is it's given the entire image just something that's cohesive, because you have these really dark areas, really bright areas, and then somewhat bright areas in the image. And when you put this paper on it, it just kind of brings it all together. So like if you look over here, it's really bright, but you know, to me, it just is a little distracting. And this is a perceivable, like, okay, this all looks like it's one thing. It's on the same type of medium. And maybe I'm just overthinking it. I don't know. You let me know in the comment section. But I do enjoy adding in textures. And I could change the blend mode to this, but I don't think I need to. I think what it's doing to the color is really helping, and it even adds in a little bit of brightness to this feature here, which again is helping draw the eye, and it leaves just a little bit of detail and mystery of the environment. You know, I think most people will look at this and say, oh yeah, you're looking out of a window at a sunset. But this just helps solidify that a little bit, and everything else in the image is pretty much dark. So it doesn't impact the image at all. And that's what I enjoy about this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a snapshot for this, and we'll call this edit 2. And then we will call it good. So really quickly, I went through 2 images, and when I was actually editing those photos, it went way faster because I wasn't actually explaining it. I was just kind of sitting here, and when things popped up in my mind, I went ahead and experimented with it, and that's what I was able to achieve. But if you want to see those photos, again, they're over on my Vero account, which is up on the screen now. And if you're new to ON1 and you want to pick it up, then consider purchasing ON1 using this coupon code. And that is up on the screen now as well. And then, of course, if you want one-on-one coaching, someone to help you develop a workflow for your images, especially as people are starting to migrate from Adobe products or maybe other photo editing software to ON1, and you're like, hey, this is overwhelming, help me out, Chris, then consider signing up for a one-on-one coaching call with me. You can do so over on my website, freewillphotos.com. Or if you check the description box, there's a link down there, so that way you can sign up. If you got questions, leave it in the comment section. And until the next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.